and they have a way to put the digital MRI over a patient while you're working on a patient, which I think is just super cool. One quick announcement. I'm going to intersperse these throughout the day. There's a cocktail hour. I figured we should know about that early. It's at 6 o'clock in Woodway Hall, I think. Next, we have our first panel of the day. So as the group makes their way up, I'm excited about this panel. I think this kind of encapsulates, hopefully, what this entire event is about, moving from a novelty to a commodity, from experimental to an effective workplace tool. And Chris, who I'm going to introduce here, I think he started his company 1 year before mine, and the only difference between us is that he built world-changing hardware, and we started a little SaaS company. So welcome Chris Parkinson, Dr. Chris Parkinson, the CEO and co-founder of RealWear.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Am I on? Can you hear me? Okay. Come on up, team. Pick a seat. Welcome to my office for the day. There's a microphone. All right, well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. Today we're going to have hopefully an exciting panel talking about past, present, and future of XR technologies. I'll introduce the panel in just a minute. Actually, I'll have them introduce themselves. First, a little word about myself and my infomercial about the company RealWear. Thank you, Magic Leap. A wonderful presentation, but you missed something, Magic Leap. You talked about VR, you talked about AR, you didn't talk about AR with a little a. Assisted reality. That's what we do. RealWear is a company that has been selling hardware for the last 7 years. We have sold assisted reality headsets to the enterprise to over 5,000 customers worldwide. We are told by our friends, by our customers, we are the gold standard for industrial wearables in the world. But before we get into that, let's have a little bit of fun, bit of a game. Can everybody stand up, please? Well, you can stand up. Yes, of course you can. Yes, please. I don't want to feel you left out. Okay, we'll just leave you there for the next half an hour, shall we? All right. If you've been to this conference before, please sit down. Okay, we have a lot of newbies here. Well, welcome. This is really good for the organizers to see. It's great. You've got a lot of people now we can network with, and we can all look around and learn a lot of stuff, hopefully as you start your digital journey. Next question. If you have tried on a RealWear headset, please sit down. All right. Okay, number one, RealWear sales team in the audience. This is your mission. And number two, let's give everyone a round of applause. And I'll tell you why. Because you lucky people, you are all winners. You have all won a free demo of a RealWear headset in our booth. So please, come on by our booth and get your headset this week. Get your headset demo this week. Okay? All right, you can sit down now. Thank you. So what do we do? So we're about 100 people worldwide, and we sell these devices to the industry, to enterprise, to give you what we call assisted reality. These are our devices. We have two. We have our flagship device here, the Navigator 520, which is a rugged industrial tablet. What do I mean by that? It's an Android tablet that you wear on your head, and you have one display. You don't have a pair of glasses. You have one display that sits below the line of sight of your eye, or above the line of sight, depending on how you want to wear it. And you look at all the information on that screen. It looks like a tiny screen from the outside, but from inside, it's a 10-inch tablet. So what do I mean? Imagine driving your car, you look at the world around you, and there in your console, you've got Apple Play or Android Auto, and you've got that big screen with icons on it that you touch. That's the same effect you get when wearing our headset. You look at the world around you completely unobscured, and then you glance down to get information from the tablet. Now, instead of touching the screen, you use voice. You talk to our headset. We have industrial-grade voice recognition that works up to 100 decibels or more. So what we've given you now is a complete hands-free experience where you can bring up any information in the world you want just by your voice. And our regular device looks like this. And true to form, in RealWear style, it's also super rugged. So I can do that. I can throw the device around and kick it around. It is designed to live on the front lines of the workforce. Now, what's really cool is that this month, we have released our latest generation device. This is called our Navigator Z1, or Z1, depending where you come from. This is rather special. It has a lovely red accent, which is not the only reason it's special. This is an intrinsically safe device. So we're in Houston. We do a lot of oil and gas here. Oil and gas people know what I mean by that, typically. This is an ATEX Zone 1 rated device, or in North America, that's Class 1, Div 1, explosion-proof. So I cannot take any of these other devices into the oil rigs, or into mining, or even into the Hershey chocolate factory where there's powder everywhere. If there's an explosive environment, you need one of these. So this is the latest and greatest device. It even comes with a thermal infrared camera, so you can see night vision, you can see predator vision, and you can see with the regular camera. And really cool about this device, RealWear believes the future of wearables is AI. So this device has our first set of AI-capable hardware. It's got its own neural net processors on board and can run AI algorithms directly on device. Right, so enough about that. So that's that thing. But we're not just about hardware, we're a solutions company. So we work with all the other software partners, we bundle solutions together, and we ship them out to the world so that you guys can actually deploy and you're not stuck in pilot purgatory. So that's the bottom line message of RealWear. I think that's my little pitch over. So now we'll actually introduce the panel and get on with the main event. Okay, chaps, ladies, gents? So, I'll pick my toys up, shall I? Right. And shall we start with Angela? Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
How about now? Okay. I'm Angela Gammill, and I'm one of the people from Delta here today. I have the pleasure of serving the in-flight cabin crews with technology. And so we are on quite a journey. A little bit more of that I'll share later.
Testing. Okay, perfect. Jeff Landowski. I run tech strategy for Sysco, the food provider, not the other ones. But yeah, very innovative company, getting into XR technology and a lot of other things. So.
I'm Dr. Brian Laughlin, technical fellow for the Boeing company, BR&T. I do a lot of Boeing research and technology, work on digital transformation and heavy in advanced visualization.
James Del Rossi, work for Dow Chemical. I'm a senior innovation manager for them, so I focus on all the hardware, infrastructure, software, wearable technology vetting for the company, focused on manufacturing and logistics.
And I'm Anthony Hartke. I'm the VDC manager for Turner's Mid-North region, Turner Construction. VDC, if you don't know what that means, basically it's anything is technology, but not IT. It's kind of the layman's terms for it. So drones, robotics, VR, AR, 3D models, et cetera.
Well, thank you, team. Thank you. So we have a very diverse group here. And what's interesting, we don't have vendors here. This is real people really using devices and really using XR for work or wanting to do that. So that makes it pretty relevant to this audience. So we're going to ask a few questions to you all, and then we'll also ask questions to the audience. So get thinking of what you want to ask as we come to that. I'll start off with Jeff. Okay, Jeff? In the Sysco 2023 annual report, your CEO talked about the recipe for growth, really where they want to convert the world to share food, to connect the world, to share food and care for one another. So, as you've already been using VR for training, what is your recipe for growth with XR and why?
Yeah, so kind of to begin with, the reason I chose Sysco and I was working with Tom Peck, our CIO, is they're a very innovative company, and I think the ability to take a risk and jump into a new space is really important. And then you have on the other side, not innovate just to innovate, right? There's a lot of companies that'll go out and just buy tech just because they want to look like, hey, I'm buying some cool tech. In reality, that doesn't serve anyone's purpose. So from Sysco's standpoint, and this sounds like a lot of other companies, but the employees and associates are really important to us because they're the branch to our customers. So from that standpoint, when we're looking at Recipe for Growth, it's a matter of how do we make their job that much easier? How do we, of course, you want to make efficiency gains and whatnot and increase your revenue, but how do we make their lives better from both a supply chain, warehousing, transportation standpoint, because that's kind of our branch into our customers. So a big piece of that is what we started with was going into virtual reality. So basically saying, all right, so how can we make a new employee start to retain new information faster, start to kind of expedite the process of getting them into the field, because we do have labor shortages out there right now. So as we're bringing in new staff, how do we make that training experience more exciting for them? How do we have these weeks of training be better instilled as they start to get into that knowledge base? So we started dabbling with virtual reality at first. Worked really well. So from a warehouse standpoint, this was all of our selectors out there. And we were working with quite a few companies to make sure that we do that in the right way, right? So once we started seeing that we have some gains in efficiencies, gains in knowledge retention, we started to be able to reduce some of that training time. We started to say, how can we dabble into the AR space? And we level set on the small a. So we found that augmented reality, once we started to put that on warehouse selectors, it starts to mess with their vision, and they're already moving at a fast pace. So we dabbled in assisted reality. So basically what you can think of is those that are out in the warehouse selecting goods, they're working either forklift or pallet jacks or whatnot, moving at a very rapid pace. But we have assisted reality. So basically you have in the corner, you have a lens there that's basically saying, all right, so your next order you need to pick is on this aisle in this location. And guess what? Now, after I grab it, I get to put it in one exact spot on the pallet. So we're taking that decision tree matrix, putting it in technology and allowing that as a visual element for these warehouse selectors. So we've seen great efficiency gains because of that. And I think kind of the cornerstone of that is not only making their jobs easier, but now you're going to have that incentive of our actual ROI, which is equally important because you want to be able to have return on that investment that you're spending. So.
Oh, well, thank you very much. That's a wonderful intro there. And in fact, warehouse picking is one of our fastest growing deployments that we've seen around the world. People are finding that's a really good niche for little AR. So we're working with our friends, especially at TeamViewer Software, to deliver warehouse picking around the world. That's a very nice home for AR at the moment. So glad you found that one. Okay, moving to James over there. Dow, Dow Chemical. Dow is big. About 38,000 employees at the last time I counted them all. Over 104 sites and 31 countries. You've led XR into this environment, but it's not been easy. Please talk about your lessons learned and your visions for the future of XR at Dow.
Sure. So I think to paint the picture, right, you have to understand the environment. Dow's manufacturing environments are very diverse. We have everything from a warehouse to a manufacturing facility the size of a skyscraper in volume, right? Integrated sites that are the surface area of Manhattan. It's a global company, right? We've got a lot of nuances around the world and types of RF protocols we can propagate, lots of nuances, right? But those environments are, they're not always the cleanest, right? You've got chemical manufacturing. I call these places RF nightmares because typically, propagating something like Wi-Fi is a real challenge in an environment like that, or in some cases, somewhat cost prohibitive for what you're, trying to do. And so, it's a balance act, I would say, of those types of environments and the challenges that they create for adoption or successful rollout of a technology and balancing that with the, I guess, the maturation of the different mobile devices that we're trying to implement. So the journey there would be, starting with ruggedized ruggedized laptops, moving to ruggedized large Windows tablets, and then trying to move into maybe like a medium-sized, smaller device space, trying to implement phones, trying to move towards more ergonomic devices that people can put in their pockets. And where we see AR, assisted reality devices built for purpose for the field in rugged manufacturing environments, they create a very unique ergonomic benefit to our field users. Hands-free operation, voice control, being able to throw it on the ground, being able to accidentally drop it down a catwalk. Well, all those little things, they matter in those environments. Hazardous rating is a huge one. And so our journey, we're trying to push towards smaller, lighter, more ergonomic devices. And what we're realizing is those devices are not exactly great for tactile entry, right? So the smaller the device, the harder it is to use with gloves. The smaller the device, you're eliminating a keyboard. I can't do a lot of data entry into these devices like I could with a keyboard, for example. And so you have to augment your environment with maybe, positioning Bluetooth beacons so that these devices are smarter and know where they are, or you have to, add a ton more sensors to augment the environment so that we're harvesting more information for these platforms so that they can present the right information at the right location at the right time. They have to be smarter. We have to think smarter about how we're actually going to create an experience and abstract all of that complexity for our end users. Ultimately, they just want to pick it up and use it. And so that has been our challenge, I would say, with AR in general and adapting to different environments, is making sure the environment is ready. Where we've had the most success has been the environments that have, we've fixed the technical debt, we have these different, let's say like the sensors, we've organized our data behind the scenes to present itself in a manner that makes sense for the end user, we're automating more. You can slip in something like an AR device in those environments a little bit more easily than you could in an environment with no connectivity, where your data is a mess, your sensor platforms are monolithic and compartmentalized. And so I would say, I'm a move the needle, not an argue about the 100% kind of guy, and I think organic growth is really important. So yeah, finding those environments in your company is a recipe for a better time, we'll say, in terms of adoption.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that answer. So I think I'm also hearing that the tech, the hardware, is just a small piece of the solution. It's an ecosystem around it that has to come in together. There's a lot of work to get there, but the reward when you get there is quite substantial. Angela, sitting here so quietly and patiently. Delta's tagline is "Climb Higher." This conference is all about reaching new levels with wearables. Can you talk about the role of XR in enhancing the in-flight experience, and how has this changed over the last few years?
I'll give it a go. Hold on. How about now? One more time.
Hello?
Might be swapped.
Yes.
How about now?
There we go.
Yes. It was a test. As I mentioned earlier, Delta really is on a journey. And because we're an airline, it's a really fickle industry. So we have to make our investments very carefully. There has to be an ROI. And the ROI for my friends in airport customer service is not going to be the same ROI as our friends in tech ops. And then finally to in-flight. So the complexities of training flight attendants, we have almost 30,000 of them now, and we're overhauling the way we train them. And what's really fascinating about this opportunity is, how do we take that training, make it much more immersive, obviously make it mobile, make it lasting, give it an ROI, and then my personal mission is to morselize that training so I can have little bits of it. You talked about little, I'm talking about tiny AR. So how can we create even packages of immersive experiences for our flight attendants that they can consume on their way to a particular flight, an aircraft they're not familiar with, a route they've never flown, and in consideration to the fact that so many of them are new. So we're trying to drive continuity of customer experience, training, make it ubiquitous. And so to really answer your question, where it's gone over the last few years, we were excited pre-COVID. And then you may have noticed it was a little tough for our industry. We're back. And so we're making some careful investments. Some of my partners are further along in their journey, really able to use headsets for training and for experiences for those people who are onboarding. The complexity of doing it for in-flight is you'll have one experience in the classroom, and any combination of wearables would be fine. But our customers don't even like the flight attendants having their onboard iPhone because they think they're doing personal pastimes. And so we're trying to minimize. So I guess in summary, my challenge is how do we drive the simplification that our crews need? I'm already combining apps and making them more intuitive. How do I build in that immersive experience to connect them? Because our other tagline is no one better connects the world. So how do we better connect to our employees, better connect them to our customers, and to their training? That's my mission.
Very good. I have a quick follow-on question for you. A lot of the industry is spending an inordinate amount of money trying to make the fabled smart glasses, the Tony Stark glasses from Iron Man. Is that the sort of thing your flight attendants would be wearing, do you think, in the future?
So if they're bothered by a phone, I think the customers would be a bit unnerved. What I would love is something incredibly subtle, something really simple, something less obvious, unobtrusive. Over time, I think it would become a normal sighting for a customer base, but we're getting them there slowly. But I would love to play with it. You have something in mind?
Wrong company, sorry. But thank you. All right, thank you for that. Let's move on to Anthony over there. Turner Construction. Turner Construction has earned recognition for undertaking large and complex projects, fostering innovation and embracing emerging technologies. You've tested many XR devices in construction. Can you elaborate on your experiences to date?
Sure. To speak to what James said earlier about they've got facilities, varying facilities, large, small, around the globe. We build facilities like that. One of our problems is a successful construction project is we're working ourselves off of the job. We're trying to get out of there. So adopting technology, we have different clients, different design teams, different trade partners. The supply chain of data coming into us is very diverse. It's never the same mix over and over and over. So when we try to adopt technology, you can have success in one scenario. The next project may not be a success because you don't have the same inputs. You don't have the same mix of people. You know, on a day-to-day basis on a project, we may have 100, 200, 1,000 craft laborers show up. We don't have the exact same people the next day. All we can control is our people, our users. But even at that point, the inputs, if we're using models, 3D models out in the field using AR, the condition of those models may be different from one project to the next. So we struggle a lot of times with the data input that we need to harness and to use. When we're out in the field, we're in dusty, dirty environments. So if you're looking at enterprise technology, if it's not ruggedized, it can get filled with dust and dirt and break down and fail. If you drop it on the ground, if it's not ruggedized, it'll break. We broke an $80,000 laser scanner one day because somebody happened to knock the tripod over. That's a big investment that all of a sudden is now broken out of service. If we've built our operational processes around a piece of equipment and it goes out of service, you either got to have a backup or you got to find a different way to get the work done, which means you're falling back to the old processes that don't include that technology. With our workforce, if it breaks, if it doesn't work, they throw it aside. They don't want to go back to it. It's got to work every time, the first time, and then every time afterwards. Another issue we have with the environment, light. We mentioned before with Magic Leap, we're outdoors. If you can't use a product outdoors, but only indoors, okay, now you got to find two different products to provide the same benefit to the workforce. That's problematic because now you're doubling the amount of technology you need to support. We have loud environments, so the idea of tactile. Well, one thing, if you can't use tactile because of gloves, go to voice recognition. Well, if you're in a loud environment, a lot of saws and construction equipment working, you can't get the audio to work. So the environment itself is it's a big struggle we got to overcome. And so something we talked about on some of our prep calls is how do we focus on creating use cases? Having a technology looking for a problem is not going to work for us. We need to find out, okay, what's the workflow? What are we trying to achieve? Create that ROI path. Implement that at a very small scale. Implement it over and over and over. Iterate it, get it to work. And then once you have technology in hand, then you start looking for auxiliary use cases. What's the kind of bolt-on uses to grow the ROI once you have the hardware in place? And I think that's where we're finding the most value, when we're able to identify a repeatable process, control all the inputs, and have a good output that can bring value to the project team, repeat, and then work on the next task.
Great stuff. Thank you. You really do have a tough environment there. So anything that works is amazing. So it's pretty cool. All right, Dr. Brian, last but not least in our roundup. Boeing's mission statement is to connect people, explore, and inspire the world through aerospace innovation. How does Boeing select its XR technologies, and how important is the overall ecosystem in that endeavor?
It's a really good question. One of the things I want to just point out really quickly, it's so cool to sit amongst other practitioners because a lot of times you hear all the kind of features and bells and whistles and stuff like that, and these folks are giving you nuggets of wisdom that come from deep experience of actually using this stuff, which I think is incredibly important because there's a bunch of landmines out there. It's not fairy tales and magic dust. It's about kind of understanding what your requirements are and actually satisfying them. So I really appreciate that. My neck's going to be sore from all the head nodding. These guys are talking about this stuff. So with Boeing, one of the things that we try to look at, and we're very specific about how we apply technology because, like my friend over here from Delta, well, actually all these guys, we can't, this isn't like skipping in the park. Like this has to pay a bill at the end of the day. It has to have a return on investment. If it doesn't have a pretty strong one, usually at least double, then it doesn't make it onto the charts. We got a lot of other things that we have to pay for that's very expensive. The other thing is that it's easy to have a kid and it's much more difficult to raise one. So you have to think about the total cost of ownership and what's the whole cycle going to be. But so we have to look at all these different kind of things when we think about what technologies we want to implement. I love the focus on the little AR stuff. I think that's really important because a lot of times we think we need a full up immersive experience, aka, and not to slander them. I think they have a great place in the jobs that we do. But magically, HoloLens, all those things are wonderful if you're doing really complex tasks like wiring a tanker, for example. But if you're doing kind of checking type things, checklisty type work, which is the majority, by the way, of the kind of work that you'll see. RealWear, the kind of stuff you guys put together is outstanding. It really, the other stuff gets in the way, frankly. So we look at, what does the task really require? What's the soul of the intention? What does done look like? What are you really trying to accomplish? And we go in first with a lean type approach and we try to understand what's the process as it is. And then we go back and we wire brush that and we create a to-be condition and we try to eliminate all the garbage out of those processes first. Then once we have that, we start thinking about what technologies will control, accelerate, and or distribute those information processes within that. And I think it's really critical that we look at it in that way because otherwise, you're out there searching for technology and you have no idea what the job you're trying to facilitate is. I think the future for where a lot of this stuff is going, as amazing as these technologies are, none of them, one swallow does not a spring make. And so likewise, these technologies are not designed necessarily to stand on their own. We tend to have conferences and we talk about a specific technology, an XR conference or an AI conference or a big data conference. The real power, and I think we're going to see this more and more, we're beginning to now, it is going to be in the convergence of these things. If you guys have read anything by Ray Kurzweil, he talks about the singularity. We're approaching that very quickly. And the singularity is where all of these different technologies converge, and so we have this kind of throughput and this pass-through capability that we've never seen before. And it's amazing where, XR and the different assistive reality technologies and things like that are really, really compelling for us because we're visual animals as humans. But what we have to do is taking those for what they are, surround them with all the other supportive functions that they need in order to make those things really shine. So I hope that's helpful.
Definitely, thank you. Thank you for that. All right, now it was a bit of a baseball weekend. We turned up with the big baseball game last night, so I think now's a great time to do our 7th inning stretch. So we'll stand up and we'll take a couple of questions from the audience, just to break it up a little bit. So do we have any questions from the audience to the panel? Yes. Okay, we need a microphone. Oh.
Hi, I'm Amanda from Lockheed Martin. I was just wondering, this is a really phenomenal panel with great diversity here. I was wondering if you can talk to some of the challenges and some of the approaches you've taken for encouraging workforce adoption.
Any volunteers?
So thinking back to what I said earlier, it sounded a little bit of doom and gloom. I don't mean to come off that way. We have found some very, I'll say, successful use cases. And I'm getting some feedback from that guy. I will say that some of the big benefits, ways we've found adoption, is to focus on the user experience. So in our case, looking at the trades in the field. That's who's putting the work in place. That's who needs the information. How can we find a device that they can use thinking about hurdles? They come across a situation, they don't know what to do. They need to be able to go look up the information when they need it, just-in-time delivery. Big buzzword. But rather than trying to put on a giant headset for every single workforce user, everybody has one of these in their pocket out in the field. We can look for the little a, micro a, bite size, call it what you want, technology of getting, in our case, the building model down to a format that's easily consumable on the cell phone. So they can pull it up, use the camera on their phone to overlay the real world condition with the model condition, look and see, all that ductwork is supposed to be in here, I gotta run pipe through, I can't put it there because that thing's in the way. So giving folks the ability to grab the information at their fingertips when they need it, but in bite-sized chunks, just to get them past that hurdle. That's where we found the most value, because that's giving value to the trades.
All right, thank you. Do you want to comment, or should we move to another question?
Amen.
Oh, amen. There we go. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a question down the front here, I believe. Come on, Jeff. You got to run, man. Run.
My name is Eric Christensen from Alaska Airlines. Angela, this is for you. I'm in in-flight training as well as an instructional designer, and given the high amount of regulation that our industry has, how have you been able to work with the FAA in VR, regarding VR training, because they don't really like it?
Very true. That's a journey that we're on, and we're making the pitch for the training. We have to show the efficacy of the training. And what I should have said earlier is the CX that we're focusing on, the customer experience, is really the tail wagging the dog, because it's safety. So proving to the FAA that this enhances safety, it informs the flight attendants, it makes them more competent in safety. And if we can demonstrate that, I think we'll be golden, but I'm happy to partner with you on that.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for that answer. Sit down. We'll continue our afternoon, shall we?
I would like to comment on the user experience stuff a little bit. So something that might help you guys. One of the things that, as humans, we love to buy into, but we hate being sold on to. And so I love what you said. You're my guy, man. I tell you what. Awesome. Really good. Know your end user. Know who this stuff is for, and don't just throw it on to them. Go and engage them. Say, hey, I'm a dummy. I don't know what you do. Help me understand what you do. Observe them. Go spend a day in the life. Say, hey, would you apprentice me for a day? Let me observe your processes, and really understand intimately what they're trying to do. And that way, once you understand what that process is, then you can enable it. A lot of times we jump straight to the technology, and we don't really understand the end user nor the technology. We just go try to write a check and solve things, and it never pans out well. So, really good discussion. Thank you.
Good stuff. All right, I'll go back to my pre-prepared questions for you. Jeff, over to you again. you're the expert in supply chain at Sysco. What does the future of logistics look like? Will robots take over all the warehousing, or is there still room for augmented humans?
The working one. Yeah, so you could basically see the writings on the wall in certain situations. So I think, if you look in the Amazon use case right now, right? So they're building out robots that are basically going through the warehouses and from a supply chain standpoint and kind of handling a lot of those tasks. I think inevitably that will be use case. They call that a dark warehouse, where basically robots are, some colleagues call it sweated to death. So 24/7 operation of a warehouse based on robots. I think there will be those situations, but there's also going to be situations in Sysco's use case where you're not able to have that, because you may have an articulated arm robot that's able to move things, but there will continue to be human interaction in those sorts of environments. So I think making their job that much easier is our prerogative right now. So part of that is getting assisted reality in, starting to help them through their process. I think we've had some good questions come through as far as what are some of the risks and barriers to entry that you're running into. Things that we see on our side is we have freezers. We're putting RealWear technology in those freezers, having to test it at below 0 temperature to say, all right, well, in this situation, how can we have that go? Do we have condensation in, so we start to see some issues and try how can we start to look beyond that? How can we start to make these guys' job that much easier? So I think inevitably there will be situations where we have robots that can come in and do a lot of that operation, but until that point in time, we will inevitably see human interaction in those places still. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that vision. That's great. James, moving over to you. Fascinating question now. At the opposite end of the technology delivery is the user adoption piece. User adoption is everything in this game. Everything must just work. You work with a really diverse workforce. How do cultural differences impact widespread adoption of XR?
Yeah, and just to clarify, when we say diverse workforce, we're really, the way I'm taking this question is, we have workers that are climbing ladders, going into confined spaces, actually having roles that are a bit more like batch or discrete manufacturing, continuous manufacturing, walking half a mile here, half a mile there, up and down a rail yard, right? You name it, right? Or sitting in a control room looking at screens, and so you have to look at that holistically and say, okay, where is AR going to be or XR going to be the most beneficial? Who actually could benefit from this? And I think what's interesting as well is, and you saw it on the screen earlier, right? There's kind of a sliding scale of XR, right? It starts with VR and it goes all the way to assisted reality, right? Devices, which are kind of like one past even like what a lot of industry considers AR to be, right? And I think understanding what the right technology is in the right kind of environment, super, super important. But for us, I like to say, what we're trying to do is augment and empower the workforce of today and tomorrow. I don't want to be babysitting people. I want to give you a tool that makes it easier to do your job. I want to be providing you with the right contextual information at the right time. I want to eliminate noise. And in some cases, right, one of the barriers you may hit in your journey, I know we did, is you may just say, hey, the right device here for this user is a phone, right? It's an ergonomic device that slips in your pocket, and that's great. But in those instances where you can move towards something like an ergonomic head-mounted wearable platform, or even like a body-worn wearable, right? That's not off the table either, right? There are tremendous benefits there from an ergonomic and simplification perspective, and abstraction of the user experience, right? So instead of having to enter a lot of data, the users can just reference something. I think AI is going to be enormous in that space, being able to talk to a wearable and just It understands where you are in a process or a procedure. It can give a young employee feedback, help them work through a new process. I mean, there's tremendous potential there. In some cases, like, I don't need to enter any information at all with a keyboard or anything. I just use my voice, right? Or in some cases, the thing just knows what I'm supposed to be doing and can guide me through it, right? And I think that's our journey. That's where we want to go. Now, from an end user experience perspective and how you can foster successful adoption, the way I look at it is, you've got, and you'll see it out in the hall here, right? You'll see some really cool software, some amazing hardware. I don't know if people are going to be talking too much about infrastructure in our area. That's a huge issue, right? But you've got to nail all three of those core tenets. Because if you don't have good connectivity, your end users are going to be complaining. They're going to say, this thing doesn't work. Or whenever I transition between indoors and outdoors, from the control room to the field, everything breaks down. My software now has to compensate with offline modes, extra durability, all those kind of nuances. Maybe I'm investing more in that arena. Is my software designed for this platform, right? Quality UI, UX, like study your software. Stop trying to take monolithic systems and square peg the round hole and make them fit on an AR device. You maybe need to look at this from the ground up again. And ultimately the hardware, fit for purpose device. I got folks wearing gloves. I've got folks that are indoors, outdoors, whatever it is, right? And lighting conditions, hearing, you mentioned a ton of those things earlier, and I was just nodding my head the whole time, right? And you've got to design for all of those different end users. And if you get all that right, then you have the fourth component, which is the cultural adoption. And if you don't nail that, you get no ROI, period. So it's a real challenge, right? So you really need to understand your environment. And then you need to understand your end user. Well, you should understand your end user before you go down that path. But if you don't nail the cultural adoption component, and that is really, you've got to nail all those hardware, software, infrastructure, and then it has to be seamless. It has to make sense. You have to abstract that information to the point where it's just, you pick this thing up and in 5 to 7 seconds, you're using it, you're walking out the door, right? You got to make sure that, you're thinking about it, you can't enter a 20-digit password into an AR device. What are you going to do, right? So, foundationally, you may have to shift the way that you look at these devices as a digital platform, and that is not a small undertaking. So really, I would advise going back to the root of what you're trying to accomplish, looking at the technology, scanning the floor out there, getting ideas about what you could be doing with it, but ultimately understand the big picture, the big space. What do I really need? What technical debt do I need to fix before I can really go down this path and actually have a successful end user adoption? And also follow the path of least resistance to success. Some sites, some locations may just pose interesting challenges you don't need to be dealing with right now, right?
Thank you, James. Great stuff. All right, now we're running out of time, so I've got 3 more questions to ask, so you have to give me the 1-minute answer. Angela, we're seeing a lot of aircraft manufacturing and aircraft folk in the audience. What do you believe are the key challenges and opportunities for XR in the airline industry?
1 minute.
In 1 minute.
1 minute. Well, we've touched on connectivity. So different use cases have different connectivity options. I focus on the worst connectivity possible. So we're up in the air. So we'll take that one off the table. But the variety of connectivity is one. But another one, and I'll stop at 2, is the disconnected approach from the different use cases through a big enterprise. Events like this give us an opportunity to come together, even in our own company, so that we can join forces and have shared assets and think about this more holistically so that we can approach this with a larger, more impactful ROI. So that's that.
Thank you. And did you get that Alaska Air Group? Really good, right. And Lockheed Martin. Very good. Anthony, your focus there on improving design and construction processes. How do you see XR evolving and playing a more significant role in the years to come?
So 1 minute answer. So the upfront use case obviously is engaging with the model early, so we can basically have a virtual representation of what the building is going to be. We can bring the parties together from remote locations, design team out in California, client up in Chicago, contractors, subcontractors on the project in Columbus. Rather than looking at that model on a flat 2D screen, we can meet inside that space, use the future building model as our meeting space to discuss accessibility, constructability, look for conflicts. I think that's one of the big major use cases that's sitting out there that's being done relatively, not regularly, but you see it happen. The field use, I think it's going to be looking at small bite size, like I said before, finding solutions that are easy to use, very minimal worker, push back on it. We're not going to be, I don't think we're going to be adopting a headset, one headset solves all our problems kind of solution. Look at certain specific things, look at repeatable tasks, and identify those use cases, those technologies to micro boost the AR, XR platforms.
Thank you for the concise. I'm going to throw one more at Brian now. This is going to be tough for Brian because it's a question that will elicit at least an hour of answer. In a minute, what advice would you give to those looking to start their XR journey? And specifically, how can their journey be accelerated beyond pilot purgatory?
Boy, so you heard it from these guys. You know, they all said time and again, know your customer, understand the environment, what are you trying to do, all those kind of things. Really important thing to keep in mind here. These are tools, folks. At the end of the day, we're people, right? We're experiential, sentient beings. People forget what you say, they forget what you do, they'll never forget how you made them feel. So include your end users, go and honor them, understand what they're trying to do, make sure that you're taking copious notes. It's their solution. You and I get to walk away and go do something else. They have to live with this thing, right? Second thing, it's a tool. Nobody who ever bought a drill wanted a drill. They needed a hole. I'm going to say it one more time. No one who bought a drill wanted a drill, they needed a hole. We are so caught up as technologists a lot of times. Look at this drill, it's so beautiful, the flutes, look how it's nitrated, all these amazing things, right? That's great for us. Users do not care. Unfortunately, all these things that are so fascinating to us as techno geeks, they could not care less. They're trying to get something done. Help them get to done. That's what they really care about. Help them find that hole that they're trying to achieve. So in a nutshell, that's the two things.
What a wonderful answer. In fact, I'm going to start a new company making holes. Okay, one final quickie now for everyone. This is a one-word answer for all of you in rotation. What is the biggest change in XR over the last 12 months that you've seen? I'll start with Anthony.
Trying to think of the word. Power, processing power.
Okay, very good.
AI.
Yeah.
I would AI.
Yeah.
Agility.
I'm going to say scalability.
All right, well, there we go. Well, thank you very much, team. Thank you very much for a fantastic panel. This is real world experience. It's wonderful. So thank you very much. All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
That was great.